These notes are about bearings. There are two ways to express bearings. The first way that you can express a bearing is when a single angle is given. And when you're given the single angle and told it's a bearing, you're going to measure in the clockwise direction from due north. So the first bearing that we want to draw is we want a bearing that relates A to C, and it says that the bearing from A to C is 30 degrees. So I know that I'm going to be first measuring sort of due north and then 30 degrees off of due north. So the way that I usually think about this is I put our starting point, which is A, and then I put a dotted line going due north. Okay, if you think about our sort of compass rose, we have never eat soggy wheat. That's the way that I learned it. I heard some of you have learned it. Never eat soggy waffles. Probably a difference in between what our breakfast options were when we were little. So north, east, south, and west. So from A, I'm going due north, but that's not actually the path that I'm traveling or the line that will connect A and C. That's just sort of my bearing. That's how it gets me started. So I'm going due north and then I want to travel 30 degrees. So, and it needs to go in a clockwise direction. So remember, clockwise is this way, the same way that our minute or hour or second hand would move on a clock. So again, this line perpendicular, that would make 90 degrees. So 30 degrees would be about a third of that. I draw in a solid line and I put my C here. Okay, a lot of times we draw an arrow like this to show that we're going from A to C. Okay, and so that's why it's our bearing from A to C. And this distance right here would be 30 degrees. So our next one, we have a bearing from P to Q, and that is 20 degrees. So again, I'm going to start with my P. I'm going to draw in my due north dotted line just to sort of give me some reference. And then I need to measure in a clockwise direction 120 degrees. So starting here, going to this perpendicular line on lined paper, right, or making a right angle, that would be 90. And then to get to 120, we would need to go about another 30 degrees. So this right here, right, moving in a clockwise direction is about 120 degrees. So I would draw my segment going down here. So I'm going from P to Q, and that's how my diagram would look. And for my next one, I need a bearing from M to N is 330 degrees. So again, I'm going to start at my position M. I'm going to put in a dotted line for reference that is moving due north, and I want to go 330 degrees. So again, I always start here. I move in a clockwise direction. So moving from here to here would be 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then another 60 degrees would put me right up here. And I am moving from N to N. So my diagram that represents a bearing from M to N is 330 degrees would look like this. So it's just sort of good to keep in track your angle measures. Sometimes this is a little confusing after our trig stuff. Because with the trig, this was 0, 90, 180. You're just starting at a different reference. Okay, so you need to remember for your bearings, your reference start due north. That's going to correspond with 0 degrees. You're going to move in a clockwise direction, so this would be 90 degrees. Clockwise, another 90 degrees, this would be 180 degrees. And clockwise another 90 degrees, this would be 270 degrees. and back, still moving in a clockwise direction, another 90 degrees would get us to 360 degrees. Okay, so your bearing always usually is between 0 and 360. 360 not included, you would just use 0. But if you get a bearing of 540 or something like that, that doesn't really make sense. We really only go, convention only has us go 0 to 360. 360 not included. So the second way to represent a bearing is when a direction is given and an acute angle are given. You are going to start in the first direction and measure towards the second direction. So for our first example, we have a bearing from S to T, and that bearing is south 52 degrees east. So again, you just want to keep in mind your compass rose as you're doing this. So this is our north, east, south, and west. And so we are going to begin at S. So I'm just going to kind of plop that just in the middle of my workspace here. So this is my S. And now it tells me that the first thing that I need to do is move south. So I'm going to put a reference dotted line showing that I'm moving south. And then it shows that I need to move 52 degrees to the east. So here's my south, here's my east. So from my first south bearing, I am moving east 52 degrees. So 52 to me, I think would be something like this. All right, sort of here would be 45, so a little bit more than that, 52. And I'm going to draw out to my T, which would be over here, and this would be 52 degrees. Okay, so obviously this is very different than without the southeast. A bearing of 52 would actually put us up somewhere in this space, but giving the bearing as south 52 degrees east, we go south and then we move to the east, which is to the right, so 52 degrees. For our next one, we have a bearing from A to B, and it shows us that we want to go north and then 86 degrees west. So since I know that I'll be going north, I'm actually going to put my A a little lower. I'm going to put in my reference north, okay, because that's the first direction I'm going, north, and then I want to go 86 degrees to the west. So west is to the left, and 86 degrees, if I came down here all the way, that it would be 90. So going pretty close, I would say something like this. Right, and this is getting me from A to B. Okay, so again, I go up, I go north 86 degrees, west, so north is this way, and then I want to move 86 degrees towards the west, towards the left. Okay, our next one, A is due west of B. So due means exactly. Okay, so I am putting my A, and now it needs to be due west, so it needs to be exactly left of B. So I'm going to put my A here, and I'm going to put my B here, and I'm going to connect them like this. Okay, so in this diagram, A is due west of B, A is directly left of B. Okay, they occur on the same horizontal plane. So at this point, I would like you to pause the video, complete the 5 U-Try problems on your own, and then restart to check your answers. So just take a look, make sure your bearings are approximately the same here. You can pause the video if you need a couple of seconds to look at them, or the answers are also included on the note sheets posted on Google Classroom.